All right, how to spool up a Daiwa Tanacom 1200 electric reel. We got our Triangle Sports HD 140 heavy duty line winder. We got the Tanacom 1200 rigged up. We're gonna be pushing it to the back of the reel bar so you have more distance of the line going onto the reel. We got our line counter here, so that's gonna be important because we're gonna, of the 3 different line settings, we're gonna be choosing where you input the length of line. They have a version 2 or a version 3. There's 3 different ways basically to spool the reel. So we're gonna be going with the first option, which is entering the amount of line you put on the reel. We're using Tight Lines braid, 100-pound test braid. So we should get about 800 to 850 yards. If you use 80-pound braid, you should be able to get around 1100. With this reel, you do not need to put a backer on there. So that pin, you can tie right to the pin. We're gonna be tying it on with a uni knot and then taping the tag end with just a little bit of electrical tape just to cushion, and then the line will grip on that better, but no backer needed because of that piece right there, the tie-on little pin or post right there. Super important. You can do this at home yourself. However, if you take it to a store, this is a brake system and a tensioning knob. So when you're spooling this reel, it's really important to stay between the min and the max tension that it recommends. And we'll show you that in a minute when we're spooling. So I'm just gonna run the line through that wormhole right there. We're gonna tie it onto the spool, tie down the tag end, and then I'm gonna be constantly using this tensioning knob. We used to use our hand on the spool, but you couldn't react fast enough, and it just wasn't quite as accurate. So by using this tensioning knob, as that line is peeling off that spool, you'll hear it kind of popping, and the tension will actually vary as it goes from the extreme sides of the spool. So that's why you're constantly going to be using that tensioning knob to keep it in what the reel sensor, what it needs for the tension. Also, when you put your spool on, make sure the center of the spool is lined up with the center of the reel. So there's these 2 adjustment knobs. This can be over to the side, and then your line's going to be coming off diagonally onto the reel. So you want the center of the reel perfectly center with the the center of the spool perfectly center with the reel. And I'm going to use this just to help the wormhole as that's going back and forth. I'm just going to be kind of guiding it and just literally tracking with that. So again, in a minute, you're going to see how this works live. For the battery, we're just using a little 15 amp hour battery. Super important. It's got to be 12 volts. So you do not want to use like a store. If you're a retail store, you don't want to be using any kind of outlet. It's got to be a 12 volt battery. Very, very important. You do not want to damage the reel. Through the menu system, you're going to be using this toggle lever, which we'll show you, and we'll take it from the top here in a minute. But that's how you spool. This is going to be how you spool a Tanacom 1200 using the Triangle Sports HD 140. And very important, always make sure you reset your line to 0. And the reason why I like that uni knot is as there's more tension, that knot is going to get tighter and tighter around that pin. So as there's more tension, it's going to cinch and pull tighter and tighter around that pin. So that's why I'm using a uni knot. I pre-tie it, and then I already fed the line through there. So now I'm going to put it on that post. All right, so I pre-tied that uni knot going around that post. I'm going to pull, give it a bunch of tension here, and it'll slide down. And there's a little flange or lip, so that line will stay pinned underneath. Here we go. So as that goes down, it's going to tighten. So I want my line going this direction. I'm going to cut my tag end right about there and put some tape over it. So that's a 100-pound braid. This cuts really clean. That's why I like these line cutters. So I'm going to do that. So the tag end I want running sideways. I want this pulled up, so as the line pulls, it's pulling straight on that knot. I want my tag line going sideways, so as the line goes over it, it's gonna hold it down. So I'm gonna figure out about how much electrical tape I need. Get that line straight. That's gonna be put down right like that. I'm gonna pull it through. So now as that line's wrapping, it's gonna hold that down and it's gonna go over and hold that tag line. It's kind of overkill. You really don't need to do that. I just want as much opportunity for that line to stay where it needs to be. And now I'm pulling it tight once again. All right, and up here, let me show this. So then we're gonna put the line around this wheel here. I'm gonna back the spool up a little bit, like so. I'm gonna tighten this down for a minute, hold it steady. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna put the power cord on here, just pops on. You don't need to do this. I'm just putting, just lightly tensioning that collar, positive to positive, red to red, black to black. Make sure you got a decent bite on there. All right, so the toggle is how you're gonna adjust for setting your language. So we're gonna go to English. Okay, I'm gonna hit English. Yes, okay, I want English. Now I use the lever again, the toggle. I wanna put it in feet. Okay, so now we're in feet. So as I'm going now, I'm gonna go menu, line data. So just go down one using the toggle. Okay, I'm in line data mode. Now here's your P1, P2, P3 that I was talking about. So there's 3 different programs. Since I actually have on the HD Triangle Sports HD 140, I have a line counter. So I'm gonna be able to tell this reel when I'm done how much line I put on. There's 2 other settings, but I'm just gonna stick with when you know how much line you have, that's what I'm gonna select. And I'm hitting the menu button as my enter button. Okay, this is really important. So here's your tensioning. There's a little band in the middle. If you see those little hash marks, there's less tension or more tension. That little arrow is going to be going back and forth as you put more tension on the reel or less tension. This toggle switch is your tension, your reel speed. So I'm going to start slow, and I want to get that little triangle to land in those highlighted 2 bars. If you could keep it right on that middle line, that would be ideal. As reels coming off the line, as lines coming off the reel, you're gonna have some variability in the tension sensor. But the key is we just wanna keep that triangle in between those 2 bars. I'm gonna adjust the tension. So here, the drag. So I wanna get that drag pretty tight here. On the HD 140, this is my tension knob. So as I tighten that there, this arrow on the reel is gonna sense that there's more tension. As I loosen the little knob on the HD 140, it's gonna go to less tension. So again, I want that triangle to land right in the middle. I'm gonna start very slow. Okay, I'm gonna put a little more tension on there. A little more tension. So I'm adjusting my tensioning knob here. I'm gonna speed it up a little bit, keeping an eye on the line. Let's speed it up a little more. I'm just watching that base layer as I go, adjusting the knob right here. So I got a little too much tension. I'm backing it down just a hair. I'd rather err on the side of more tension than not enough. So that line's looking good. And what'll happen is sometimes the line won't reach all the way to the outside. So what I can do is, if I need to help it, I can follow that line with that guide all the way over to the edge. But ideally, you can just kind of keep it in the middle, tighten this little knob. That's gonna hold it. I want everything dead center. I'm checking my tension. The line's going on just fine. So now I'm gonna start moving this knob up, keeping an eye on that tension, making sure my triangle is right in the middle. So I got a little too much tension, just backing it down. I want it to be hanging out right in that middle area. So I'm just taking a hair bit of tension off. That's looking good there. So now I'm gonna speed it up a little bit. And I'm just gonna be constantly adjusting this knob, the tension knob. I'm gonna speed it up a little more. Line's looking good. This is staying center. And I'm gonna be picking up speed just a little bit. Adjusting it a little bit less tension, because the tension's changing as it's pulling off the side of the spool versus the middle. You're gonna have that line's kind of trying to pull off that spool, so I'm adjusting it here. Keep this in the center. Let's speed it up a little bit more. Loosening the tension just a hair. All right, we're good there. All right, so now we're entering how much line we put on the reel, which is 800 meters. So I'm using the toggle and I'm going up to 800 and go back up to 8 right there. If you leave it forward, it's going to jump in 100-meter increments. And then if I go down, it seems like it's not going to go down, right? So if you go down and leave it in the down position, then it'll drop, okay? And then from there, once you're in that 800 category, you can go up and down. So I need 800 meters. I'm gonna hit menu, okay. And we are complete. There we go, now we're ready to rock and roll. So hope this video helped you out. And yeah, Tanacom 1200, brand new with tight lines, 100-pound braid, spooled with a Triangle Sports HD 140. And of course, don't forget your line cutter, 100-pound test braid, watch that.